May 1945. World War II had just ended in Europe. As Allied forces swept through Germany, they discovered something that would shock the world. Not just concentration camps, but also thousands of German women imprisoned by their own regime. Political dissidents, resistance fighters, women who had dared to speak against the Nazi regime. They'd survived years of starvation, brutality, and unimaginable horror in places like Ravensbrück concentration camp. Now, they were coming to America. What happened next in a simple U.S. Army mess hall would reveal something profound about freedom, dignity, and what we take for granted every single day. Among the first groups of liberated prisoners brought to the United States for medical treatment and rehabilitation were 127 German women. Most were barely recognizable as human beings. Their average weight was 85 pounds. Many couldn't walk without assistance. They'd survived on watery soup, moldy bread, and occasional scraps, sometimes as little as 500 calories a day for years. Army nurse, voice actor, emotional, nothing could have prepared us for what we saw. These weren't just thin, they were walking skeletons. Their eyes, they'd seen things no human should ever see. The women were terrified. They didn't understand why they'd been brought to America. Some feared it was another camp. Others thought they were being brought here to die. After years of Nazi lies and propaganda, trust was a foreign concept. The Army had prepared a special welcome meal. Nothing fancy by American standards, just typical mess hall fare. But the medical officers had been careful. They knew that rich food could actually kill people whose systems had been starved for so long. Medical officer. Start simple. Broth. Soft bread. Gradually introduce proteins. Their digestive systems can't handle a normal diet yet. But when the women entered that mess hall, they stopped dead in their tracks. There were plates. Real plates, not tin bowls. There were napkins. There was butter, actual butter, not rancid substitutes. There was bread that wasn't moldy. And there, on several platters, was something most of them hadn't seen in years. Bacon. The aroma hit them first. For people who'd been surviving on starvation rations, the smell of cooking meat was overwhelming. Several women broke down immediately. Others stood frozen, unable to believe what they were seeing. A few actually asked if this was real or if they were hallucinating. American soldier, gentle voice, "It's real, ma'am. Please sit, eat. You're safe now." One woman, whose name was recorded as Margarete Schneider, a former teacher who'd been imprisoned for hiding Jewish children, reached out with trembling hands. She picked up a single strip of bacon. The medical officers watched anxiously. They'd warned the women to eat slowly, to start with just small amounts. But they hadn't anticipated the emotional response. Margaret took a bite, chewed slowly. Tears began streaming down her hollow cheeks. Then she spoke, in German, but an interpreter was standing nearby. Her words would be recorded in multiple military reports and personal accounts from that day. Margaret's subtitle in English, Is this the flavor of freedom? To understand what that question meant, you have to understand what these women had endured. In camps like Ravensbrück, food was used as a weapon. Prisoners were systematically starved, not just to weaken them physically, but to break their spirits, to dehumanize them, to reduce them to creatures who would fight each other over crumbs. The daily ration was deliberately calculated to kill slowly. Just enough to extract labor, not enough to sustain life. A thin soup made from rotten vegetables. Bread mixed with sawdust. Sometimes meat from diseased animals that even the guards wouldn't eat. Food stopped being about nourishment. It became about survival, about degradation. Every meal was a reminder that you were less than human, that your life could be taken away with a single decision. So when Margaret asked if bacon was the flavor of freedom, she wasn't just talking about food. She was talking about dignity, about having enough, about not having to fight for every morsel, about food that was clean, properly cooked, given freely, without humiliation. According to the nurses present, the women couldn't stop touching things. The tablecloths, the plates, the napkins. One woman spent 5 minutes just folding and unfolding her napkin, crying silently. They couldn't believe they were allowed to have butter. Real butter. One woman asked if she'd have to pay for it. Another asked what work she'd have to do to earn the meal. They couldn't comprehend that it was just given. that they deserved it simply because they were human beings. The bacon became symbolic that day. It represented everything they'd lost and were now beginning to reclaim. Choice, plenty, respect, the simple acknowledgement that their lives had value. It wasn't just physical to recover, it was psychological. Many of the women suffered from what we now call PTSD, nightmares, panic attacks, an inability to believe they were truly safe. Some hoarded food, unable to break the survival instinct. Others couldn't eat without guilt, thinking of those who hadn't made it out. The simple act of eating a normal meal was, for many, traumatic. But slowly, meal by meal, day by day, they began to heal. And food became part of that healing. Not just nutrition, but a daily reminder that they were free, that they were valued, that they were human. One of the most powerful moments came 3 months later, when several of the women asked if they could cook a meal. Not German food, they wanted to cook American food. They wanted to make bacon. Today, we walk into a grocery store and see bacon on the shelf. We take it for granted. We complain about the price, or whether it's thick cut or applewood smoked. We've never had to consider that bacon could represent freedom. But for Margarete Schneider and those 127 women, that strip of bacon in an army mess hall in May 1945 was a revelation. It was proof that the nightmare was over, that there was still good in the world, that humanity could still triumph over evil. We often think of freedom in abstract terms, constitutional rights, political systems, philosophical concepts. But for people who've been truly oppressed, freedom is tangible. It's in the small things. A full plate, a clean bed, the choice to say no thank you to food and know there will be more tomorrow. That's freedom. Of the 127 women who came to America that spring, 89 chose to stay. They became citizens, started families, built lives. Many never spoke publicly about what they'd endured. Margarete Schneider became a teacher again, this time in Pennsylvania. She taught German and history for 30 years. On the first day of every school year, she would tell her students about the day she tasted bacon in America. Margaret, elderly, voice actor, I tell you this not to make you sad, but to make you grateful. You live in a place where food is abundant, where you can choose what to eat, where no one uses hunger as a weapon. Never take that for granted. Freedom is not just about big things. It lives in every small choice you make, including what you have for breakfast. She died in 1998, at the age of 81. At her funeral, her daughter revealed that every Sunday for 53 years, Margaret had made bacon for breakfast. It was her ritual, her remembrance, her celebration of survival. This story isn't really about bacon. It's about what happens when we forget what freedom costs, when we take abundance for granted, when we stop seeing the humanity in others. Throughout history, food has been used as a weapon of oppression. Stalin's Holodomor, the Irish potato famine under British rule, the sieges of modern wars. Starvation is not just about calories, it's about control, about dehumanization, about breaking the spirit. But this story is also about resilience, about the human capacity to heal, about how small acts of kindness and dignity can begin to repair even the most profound damage. That meal in the Army mess hall, that simple plate with bacon, eggs, bread, and butter, was more than food. It was a statement. It said, "You are human. You have value. You deserve to be nourished, not just fed. You deserve choice. You deserve freedom." The next time you sit down to breakfast and smell bacon cooking, take a moment. Remember Margaret. Remember those 127 women who discovered that freedom has a flavor. Remember that what we consider ordinary, a full plate, a clean table, the choice to eat or not eat, is extraordinary to those who've known true oppression. And remember that freedom isn't just a political concept or a line in a constitution. Freedom lives in the small moments, in the ability to sit at a table with dignity, to share a meal without fear, to taste bacon and know that you are safe. You are valued. You are free. This story is dedicated to all survivors of oppression who have reclaimed their dignity one meal, one moment, one choice at a time. Never forget. Never take freedom for granted. Between 1933 and 1945, the Nazi regime imprisoned over 130,000 women in Ravensbrück concentration camp alone. Approximately 50,000 did not survive. This story honors those who did and remembers those who didn't.